Hello and welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Detroit. Gabby Sparks with Louis Scott Vargas in the booth, and we're getting ready to watch Gerry Thompson versus Shogo Yamasaki. Both players are sitting at 11-1. This is round 13. And we have a matchup of blue-white Eldrazi versus...
Red-green Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Kind of the bigger version. You do see Lightning Bolt in Shogo's hand. It's not the only Lightning card in his deck. He's got one copy of Lightning Greaves, which is a pretty sweet card. We have not seen that yet this weekend.
Spicy.
Yeah, it's a 2-mana equipment, and equips for 0, and it gives the creature Shroud and Haste. So Shroud is the precursor to Hexproof. You can't even target your own Shrouded creatures.
Can't touch this. Lightning Bolt's going to take care of that Sky Spawner, but a Scion is left behind. Cavern of Souls, naming Eldrazi, presumably. All right.
That is my assumption.
Thought Not Seer comes down. Let's see.
Looks like a Dismember in response.
So down goes the Scion. He is going to take care of that Thought Not Seer, but he...
And then the Thought Knot is going to take care of the Sky Spawner. Gerry playing surprisingly fair. He has none of the 2-mana lands here. So
or any cards in his hand at this point. He drew an Eye of Ugin.
Yeah, Gerry is on 4 lands in play, 2 in his hand, and really hoping to draw some action here because Shogo has still a handful of cards. And, the longer the game goes, the more of an advantage Shogo has. He's got an Ulamog in his deck. He's got an Endbringer in his deck. He's got Ancient Stirrings. His deck is just less prone to flooding out because it has more late-game mana sinks and cards like Ancient Stirrings. And it just has a higher high end. Like, you see that World Breaker kind of lurking there. As well as an Oblivion Sower. If Shogo draws another land that isn't an Eye of Ugin, because he's got a second one of those, if he draws another land and can play Oblivion Sower into World Breaker, it's going to be really hard for Gerry to combat that. Gerry Thompson, he's got 1 PT top 8 and 9 Grand Prix top 8s. And I've played a lot with Gerry. I've known him for a long time, and we've tested together many, many times. He's a great dude and a very good deck builder.
Yeah, he has 3 GP wins, 2 wins in Nashville and Denver in 2018. Or sorry, 2008. We're not in the future yet.
Yeah.
Though we presume that Gerry will be winning in the future as well. All right. Oblivion Sower. Here we go. Let's reveal. Just 1 land, 2 Mimics. Yeah, looks like 2 Mimics and 2 unless ones get exiled there. Another Eldrazi Mimic for Gerry.
And Gerry actually building up towards activating Eye of Ugin. You notice he's not playing the Eye of Ugin in his hand. He's not going to play that until he plays it as his 8th land because he doesn't want to expose it to World Breaker. A World Breaker Shogo can cast thanks to stealing Gerry's Dark Art Wastes.
All right, World Breaker comes here. Going to take care of
It's
that
funny.
Hallowed Fountain.
By killing Hallowed Fountain, I think Shogo is demonstrating that he kind of knows what Gerry's list is up to because a lot of people would be tempted to kill Caves of Coilus. It's Gerry's only black source, and he has tons of blue and white mana. But I think Shogo knows Gerry doesn't actually have any black spells. He just has Dismember, so he doesn't need to take it out. He'd rather take out Gerry's painless source of mana.
On the other hand, Shogo is Canadian-born. He started playing during Return to Ravnica. That's similar to when I started playing, actually. He has 1 Pro Tour appearance so far. It was in Cons, and he made day 2.
So Gerry did draw an Eldrazi. He drew a Thought Not Seer, which lets him leave Shogo on two copies of Kozilek's Return, but Oblivion's so hiding out with those lands there. I don't think an Oblivion Sower would be able to hide on a Dark Art Waste. So the Waste looks pretty flat, pretty open, and Oblivion Sower looks gigantic.
No, I think he's like, Elephant Ambush. That little elephant hiding behind that tree. He's kind of like that. He can't really hide very well. So a land for Shogo.
And Shogo's really far ahead here. Not only does he have a 5-8 and a 5-7 against Gerry's 4-4 and a 2-1, then Shogo is only 1 mana away from activating his Eye of Ugin, which is a lot more powerful in his deck than Gerry's.
All right, so Kozilek's Return going to take care of that Mimic.
And the second return likely taking care of that Thought Not Seer. Oh, interesting. So Shogo's attacking here. Gerry's forced to chump. I would have been tempted to cast the second Kozilek's Return, I think, but I don't think Shogo can lose in either case.
Yeah.
Gerry taking back his land.
Gerry takes back his land and calls it the game. All right. So Shogo leads 1-0 against Gerry Thompson.
Shogo has Ensnaring Bridge in his sideboard. That's awesome.
Oh, that's...
So his plan in the mirror has to be Ensnaring Bridge, and he has 3 more copies of Endbringer. That is incredible.
Oh.
Ensnaring Bridge, a card we've seen all over the place this weekend. We've seen it in Elves, Affinity, and of course Lantern as a way to defeat the Eldrazi menace. But Shogo's just like, what? If it's good against Eldrazi, I'll just put it in my deck and then use Endbringers and Ensnaring Bridges.
That's really great, actually. I really like that. We're going to move over to the matchup Ben Friedman versus Eric English. We have a matchup of Abzan Company versus Red Green Eldrazi. We have the 12-0 player versus Eric.
Yeah, and we just saw Ben advance to 12-0 by beating Jund. It looks like he's got most of his combo out here. He's got Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, and Viscerous here.
And the Reality Smasher was found by that Ancient Strings.
Yeah, and Ben is missing a Kitchen Finks or a Red Cap to complete the loop. But he's not going to have tons of time, because presumably that Reality Smasher is coming out on turn 4 here. And Eric already has a Thought-Knot Seer and a Matter Reshaper. So Ben's deck does a pretty good job of putting creatures into play here. He's going to be able to assemble a lot of blockers, and if he has a Chord, he can just combo out, and if he has a Collected Company, he can, well, have a good chance of comboing out.
Eric English, the player from Rochester, New York. He's been playing for a very long time. We have a fun quote from him. He says he hasn't played a deck this good in the GP in a very long time.
And he said that yesterday when he was I think he was 8-0, and him being 11-1 here probably means he has not changed his opinion much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's X1 in games. He only took that loss yesterday in round 8. He also has a Pro Tour appearance at Pro Tour Theros. He really wants to get back on the train. So this awesome run today, he's doing so well so far. And
yeah, he's going to need 2 more wins. He needs to win this round, and he needs to win the next round, or the round after that. You know, he's got 3 shots to do that.
Get on that train. All right, Collected Company.
So Company, this is the fun way of seeing what's going to happen, because it's not a guaranteed combo, but there's a pretty decent chance of it. And there's a Kitchen Finks.
All right, Spellskite Kitchen Finks, and that's game. Ben Friedman takes it 1-0 leads against Eric English.
Right, and Anafenza, Viscerous Seer, and Kitchen Finks combined to give Ben infinite life and bolster and a bunch of bolster triggers.
So let's switch back and see what's going on with Gerry and Shogo for now. I think the players are almost done shuffling, about to get started on game 2.
And this is about the time in the tournament when you might be aware that your opponent has something like Ensnaring Bridge in their sideboard. So, you know, Gerry, he might board it. He's likely boarding in Cyclonic Rift regardless, but normally you would never even think about boarding in Hurkyl's Recall against the Mirror, but Gerry knows about Ensnaring Bridge. He might have to.
Yeah. Do you think there's a chance he knows?
There's a chance. Shogo's 11-1. Gerry's probably and so is Gerry. They've probably played next to each other, or Gerry's, walked around and seen what other people are playing.
Saw the bridge. If you can't beat him, join him on the bridge plan.
Yes. And another card that Shogo has in his deck, which is pretty awesome, is Blasphemous Act.
All right.
Yeah. So that does 13 damage to each creature. So Shogo's expecting board stalls and can just run out Blasphemous Act here.
That's great. You're right. He actually has 2 copies of Blasphemous Act in his sideboard, so he came prepared to deal a lot of damage.
It's pretty funny when creative sideboarding plans like this are, all the sort of thing that it's fun to watch, and it's fun when they get rewarded. So given that Shogo's 11-1, my guess he's played around 4 mirrors so far, if not more, and presumably his sideboard tech is good.
I mean, I like the tech, right? You can run into that situation where, like, you as the Eldrazi deck, you're expecting other people to play Ensnaring Bridge against you. So if you have things like the Endbringers, you can just kind of run away with a game like that.
Oh yeah, that's also a really good point. If you expect opposing Ensnaring Bridges, Endbringer gives you a nice out to that too.
Yeah. It's almost like using your opponent's sideboards to your advantage in some ways if you can anticipate what they're going to bring in. Or even in game 3 once you've seen what they're up to in game 2.
Right. Retrumping sideboard plans is awesome because when they side in cards that you have a good plan against, they actually kind of make their deck worse, and and you get a huge advantage out of that.
So Eldrazi Temple for Gerry and an Eldrazi Mimic on turn 1.
And Gerry has a solid hand. He's got Eye, he's got Temple, look like at least a Reality Smasher, and he drew a turn 2 Thought Knot. So this is just the classic Eldrazi nut draw.
Yeah, so that Bolt's going to take down that Mimic in response to Thought Knot coming into play. Let's see what's going on in Shogo's hand. Looks like a number of lands, Naya Vugan, Ghost Quarter, those aren't targets, another Forest. Oblivion Sower, the Blasphemous Act, so now Gerry can see what's up, and a Coastal X return.
The one disadvantage to Blasphemous Act in a situation like this is it's the kind of card that gets much, much worse when your opponent plays around it, because not only do they expose fewer creatures to it, they also make it harder to cast, because it costs 1 less for each creature in play. So Gerry can take something like Oblivion Sower and just play around Blasphemous Act if he thinks the game's going to head in that direction. Kozilek's Return, not a big threat by itself either.
Yeah, so he's going to take that Oblivion Sower. Oblivion Sower down and a pass back to Shogo. Curve the Burn Woes is a draw.
Given that Gerry's following up with Reality Smasher, Shogo's going to need to draw Ensnaring Bridge pretty quickly, though Ensnaring Bridge doesn't actually stop Thought Knot Seer. Let's see, if he draws, he has 5 cards in hand. Next turn, he'll go to 6. He'll play Bridge and have 4. He'll get attacked by Thought Knot, but not Reality Smasher. Looks like Shogo is just going to slow both players down here.
Yeah, so he's going to activate his Ghost Quarter to take down that Eye of Ugin. It does give Gerry a land this turn, but it is going to slow him down significantly.
Yeah, if Gerry doesn't find another 2-mana land, he can't play Reality Smasher here, and Shogo, I think, is just worried about that.
Well, he has no answer to something like that at this point.
Yeah. It does mean that Shogo's down to 1 mana, so Shogo's not that close to casting anything either. He's got...
Oh, but he had an Eye of Ugin.
Oh, he had the other eye anyway. Wow.
So Reality Smasher crashes in. 9 damage for Shogo.
And that's one of the disadvantages of hitting Eye over hitting Eldrazi Temple. If Gerry had Eye Island in play, a second Eye would not have helped. Though, yeah, Shogo's in a ton of trouble now.
Yeah, so Eye of Ugin for Shogo, but no play.
Gerry sided in Mutagenic Growth. It's a way to make it so your Reality Smashers and Thought Knot Seers beat theirs in the mirror. That's awesome. I'm a huge
really
fan.
like that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
They're also not going to see it coming.
No, for sure not.
Yeah.
Both these players have some creative sideboard options going on, and that may both be why they're 11-1.
Yeah. In a field that's all Eldrazi, looks like both of them have considered how do I beat the Eldrazi mirror and how do I beat the rest of the field. And yeah, Gerry with the Mutagenic Growth, Shogo with the Ensnaring Bridge, Endbringer plan.
Yeah, Mutagenic Growth, when they dismember, sounds incredible.
Yeah.
They dismember your Thought Knot Seer and discard a card, and you're just like, Mutagenic Growth.
Mutagenic Growth.
Paid 0 mana.
That's awesome. So Gerry's going to take that game and even them out to 1-1.
And Gerry could have finished the game a turn earlier by casting that growth, but there's no way he wants to do that. If Shogo doesn't know about Mutagenic Growth, it's so good for Gerry. He wants to keep that tech, as hidden as possible.
That is actual tech. That's like secret sauce. I love it.
Both players deciding whether they want to head back to the sideboard. Shogo making just a minor adjustment here.
Yeah, especially without having seen anything like, now Gerry might change something now that he's seen Blasphemous Act. I don't know if he would. Do you think?
Gerry can't really fundamentally change his strategy against Blasphemous Act. He could board in Stubborn Denial because that's a good card against giant non-creature spells. But Gerry can also just play around it. I mean, Jerry's a very experienced player. He knows how to play around cards like this, and he uses that information to his advantage. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gerry just keeps the plan the same, but decides to just keep that in his mind. Like, he doesn't know how many Blasphemous Acts Shogo has. My guess would be 1 or 2 if I were Gerry. I'm not going to necessarily make worse plays out of the fear of that, but I also might not add another creature to the board if it looks like Shogo will be able to cast Act.
Do you think Shogo's plan changes at all, given what he saw from Gerry? It was very traditional, right? He didn't see the Mutagenic Growth.
No, Gerry, so far, from Shogo's perspective, has looked exactly like a standard blue-white Eldrazi deck, and I don't think that Shogo's got a real big reason to deviate from his plan. He might, based on the fact that he showed Gerry the Blasphemous Act, but I still don't think that really necessitates an adjustment. It might be that Blasphemous Act's not very good when your opponent knows about it, but it might be that Gerry just doesn't have a way to play around it anyway. Yeah,
I like that. And if he does board it out, Gerry will certainly be playing around it in some sense because now he has seen it, so he has a little bit of that advantage.
Yeah, I love that with cards like Mana Tithe. We actually saw Mana Tithe.
We actually saw it in action this weekend.
But when you Mana Tithe your opponent's spell, they live in fear of Mana Tithe. They play worse because of Mana Tithe in a lot of cases, and you can just have 1 Mana Tithe and still get all that value.
Well, that's a nice thing, because there was only 1 copy, and this was Ben's deck, right?
Yeah, Ben Rubin.
Yeah.
Shogo's got a really nice draw here. He's got Ancient Stirrings with the Karplusan Forest, so he can cast turn on Ancient Stirrings, and he's got Talisman of Impulse. One of the features of the big Eldrazi deck is it's got these 2-mana ramp artifacts, which mean that Shogo's on pace. Or no, this looks like, this is Shogo, not Eric English and Ben Friedman. Shogo's on pace to cast a a World Breaker pretty quickly.
Yeah, so Ancient Stirrings for Shogo. Let's take a look. Looks like there's a...
Thought Not Seer. That's a
There you
pretty
go.
good one.
That's a pretty good one to find. So Thought Not Seer for Shogun to pass back to Gerry. Gerry drew an Ayabugan on his first turn. I think it's his only 2-mana land as well. Actually, no, there might be another Eldrazi Temple back
might
there.
have a temple hiding there.
Yeah. So Eldrazi Mimic, pass back to Shogo. He drew another Thought Not Seer. Thought Not Seer excellent in this matchup.
This could be tough for Gerry. Shogo's going to have turns 3 and 4 Thought Not Seers
Yes,
here.
there's the Talisman for Shogo.
But Gerry has a bunch of Dismembers. It's kind of unfortunate that Gerry might be in the position to reveal his tech of mutagenic growth here, because Shogo's going to see it with Thought Not Seer, which does reduce the effectiveness of it significantly.
All right, so untap for Shogo. Let's draw a card. Looks like it was an Eldrazi Temple.
Unfortunately for Shogo, he had to play a non-Ayabugan land to play the Talisman, because if he was able to have Eye and Temple out here, he would actually be able to cast 2 Thought Not Seers this turn, but he's just going to settle for really just getting a ton of cards into play.
Yeah, not too shabby getting another Talisman of Impulse in play and a Thought Not Seer. So, here comes the secret tech. It is now revealed. Mutagenic Growth in Gerry's hand. Also a Dismember, Reality Smasher, another Dismember.
And my expectation is that Shogo takes the Reality Smasher here, because he doesn't want to take 10 next turn. Probably a pretty good idea. Gerry's going to be able to end a turn Dismember, draw an extra card, and Gerry clearly not Dismembering in response because he has 2 copies. He doesn't want to give Shogo access to another card to look at with Thought Not. But, Shogo can cast World Breaker next turn.
Yes.
Shogo's actually almost able to cast World Breaker plus Thought Not Seer next turn. He's actually only 1 mana short.
Yeah, so the Dismember's going to take care of the Thought Not Seer. Gerry casts it at the end of his turn. Shogo's turn.
Well, at least Gerry's going to get to attack for 3 this turn.
Yeah, so Eldrazi Displacer makes that Mimic into a 3/3 crunch, putting Shogo down to 14. On tap for Shogo.
Well, Shogo's playing a promo version of something.
Yeah.
We can tell you that much. Maybe it's an Endbringer or something like
That'd
that.
be pretty cool. Oh, it might be the pre-release promo, because I think it was one of the pre-release promos.
So
All right, Eldrazi Temple. Here comes Thought Not Seer. Let's take a look at your hand, Gerry.
this time Gerry might actually Dismember in response, given that he...
It's his last Dismember too,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So Dismember will take care of that Thought Not Seer, but he's still going to have to reveal his hand. Oh, he drew a Drowner of Hope off of that Thought Not Seer, and it's
that's what's going down,
and it's probably going to be the target. One of the few times when you're kind of rooting not to draw anything awesome off of that Thought Not Seer.
And it looks like it was an Endbringer for Shogo here, is my assumption, because that's the 6-mana Eldrazi. Yeah. So Endbringer's got a bunch of abilities. It can it untaps during your opponent's untap step. It also taps to ping for 1. You can pay a colorless and tap it to make a creature unable to attack or block. And you can pay 2 colorless and tap it to draw a card. That's the best ability. Eldrazi Temple does you activate those abilities as well. So Shogo's going to have a lot of options here. It can ping the Eldrazi Mimic away. It can draw cards on his turn. It can untap, be a blocker, or it can stop things from attacking.
Oh, Gerry top deck a Drowner of Hope. So here it comes with 2 Scions.
Oh, wow. That was a really good draw, obviously. Because now Gerry gets to tap down the Endbringer and attack for 8.
Right, yeah. Endbringer tapped and attack for 8, putting Shogo down to 6. Untap Endbringer. He drew a Forest. Now what do you do with your Shogo? You know that Drowner of Hope's just going to tap your Endbringer here.
Yeah, I imagine Shogo's going to use Endbringer to ping away the Scion on his turn before playing Worldbreaker, because then Endbringer will untap on Gerry's turn. And then you can, potentially ping the Mimic. The problem is Eldrazi Displacer plus Drowner of Hope is a really good combination, and Gerry, Shogo has no way to disrupt Gerry from doing that besides he can Worldbreaker the Eldrazi Temple. So I think I like pinging the Scion and then Worldbreakering the Temple after the Scion's dead, and then if Gerry doesn't draw land, he's unable to do anything else.
Okay, so here's a Worldbreaker, targeting the Temple, exiling the Temple.
Yeah, and here's where if Shogo is pinging the Scion, you really want to do that before playing the Worldbreaker, so your Worldbreaker doesn't get tapped down.
Yeah, so Looks like a ping. I think it's targeting the Mimic.
Yeah, so Shogo's opting to target the Mimic. Jerry's going to pull the trigger on that mutagenic growth.
All right, and Shogo passes back. The Endbringer does untap. Draw for Gerry. He found a Reality Smasher.
That's presumably just lethal here or very close to it. So you play Reality Smasher. Shogo can ping the Mimic if he wants, and then you can tap the World Breaker and just attack for a ton of damage. Shogo can also make something unable to attack instead, but that accomplishes about the same thing. I think the fact that he drew a haste creature very relevant, though it's possible he would have had lethal anyway. Tap the World Breaker, attack with these 3, block, shoot the Mimic. No, I guess that's not quite lethal without it, or at least it's a little more complicated. Whereas just playing Reality Smasher does exactly what you want here.
All right, so Caves of Coil is for Gerry. Down comes a Reality Smasher. Trigger for the Mimic. He let it happen?
Yeah, it looks like it. The Endbringer can stop one attacker no matter what with its tap ability, and Gerry just has 3 5/5s and a 3/3. Shogo's at 6.
Yeah, and there's a hand extension by Shogo. Gerry takes the match 2-1. Blue-White Eldrazi reigning over Red-Green Eldrazi.
So Gerry had a hand of mutagenic growth, and Dismember the Thought-Knot Seer, drew Drowner, got exiled, drew Drowner, played it, drew Reality Smasher. So Gerry very well played there, figuring out a way to get all those Eldrazi in a row. But, Gerry set himself up for that. Mutagenic growth.
The mutagenic growth was good right there.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It was relevant, though I think that Gerry had a pretty big advantage just because of the Displacer on the Drowner anyway.
So moving back to the match between Ben Friedman and Eric English, the players are currently in Game 3. We have Abzan Company versus Red-Green Eldrazi.
And Abzan Company would much rather play against the Blue-White Eldrazi deck because of Kozilek's Return. Eric English has 4 copies of Kozilek's Return in the main deck, and Kozilek's Return kills all of Ben Friedman's creatures on the first go-round, much less the second.
Yeah, Eric also has a lot of copies of Lightning Bolt in the sideboard. Do you think this is the kind of matchup he would want to bring them in?
Yeah, Lightning Bolt does slow down the combo, and you don't really as much want some of the larger non-trampling Eldrazi, like Endless One, for example, or Matter Reshaper. Matter Reshaper does block Kitchen Finks early, and you kind of want to trade off there, so that's not too bad. One thing I do like about Endless One, though, in this deck is you can play it for a large enough X to re-trigger Kozilek's Return.
That's true. That is a nice little synergy with Kozilek's Return. And this deck obviously trying to go for the bigger plan in trying to cast Kozilek's Return from the graveyard.
Ben, on the full amount of copies of Big Game Hunter, I would imagine the 2 he has in his sideboard. I don't even think he wants Worship here. It's funny because Worship is a card that, in a lot of ways, you put in your sideboard to deal with an Eldrazi deck, but against an Eldrazi deck that has a bunch of World Breakers and potentially even like an Ulamog, which Eric does have in his sideboard, a Worship starts to look a lot less appealing.
Yeah, I played with Worship in the sideboard of a couple of Eldrazi decks that I was playing leading up to this event, and I cannot say that I was a fan. I didn't find it to be very effective, and I don't know how different it is for Ben in his list, but I will tell you that it was not great in the Eldrazi list.
Yeah, my experience with the card is kind of the same as yours. It infrequently turns a loss into a win. Sometimes it delays a loss, but it doesn't usually actually make you win that game.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, too, is it makes the games go long, and there are cards that really mess around with a Worship, too, so it makes the game state not, just go very long, and then occasionally just, maybe lose out of nowhere. It's hard to pay 4 mana in the Eldrazi deck. It's a lot of mana, considering that you are playing things like Thought-Knots here, but you're only playing them for, 2 mana most of the time.
I really dislike it in Eldrazi sideboards, and I think we've seen most people move away from it. Ben has just 1 copy left in his deck, which is a little easier to cast. He's got a bunch of birds and whatnot, but I still would not have it in the deck against someone playing World Breaker and Kozilek's Return to kill all your creatures and Ulamog, that sort of thing.
I was in the booth yesterday with BDM, and he told us a great story of somebody out, I forget exactly who, someone out there, a Blue-White Eldrazi player who actually was playing Training Grounds and got to go infinite with Eldrazi Displacer and Drowner of Hope.
Yeah, we talked about that before this tournament. It's a funny combo because
but he actually did it. It was sweet.
It makes Displacer cost just 1 colorless to activate, which means that if you keep displacing Drowner, you get infinite tokens, then you can deck them because of the Thought-Knot Seer. You just keep blinking your own Thought-Knot Seer and stacking draws.
Yeah, so he did everything you just said is something that he did.
Well,
I
that's
did hear also that he didn't really need to do that to win the game, which is slightly disappointing. But why wouldn't you do it once you're in that
Yeah.
situation?
So it's really hard to consider mulliganing a hand with a Birds of Paradise on turn 1, but Ben's got a hand where he might actually. He's got Court of Calling, Birds of Paradise, and 5 lands, which means turn 1 birds, turn 2 go, turn 3 go, turn 4 go. He's going to keep it, but he needs to draw any creature in the first 2 turns makes this hand acceptable. Drawing a company makes this hand acceptable, but I'm not excited about this hand. I think it's the kind of hand you can consider mulliganing.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to keep those hands where you say, like, look, maybe this is a hand that we lose with, but I have to keep it. It's definitely a keep, but it's not good.
Yeah, this is like, if it is a keep, it's like a 52% keep where you were mulliganing anything below 50%. You're barely happy about this.
So he found a Viscera Seer. Not super impactful here, but it does give him something to do, at least in the first couple turns of the game.
Yeah, it taps for mana for Chord, so at least now Ben can play Viscera Seer, and then next turn he can Chord for 2. He's getting close to the combo, but he just has to hope that Eric doesn't have a bunch of disruption.
Oh, Eric leads with 2 Eldrazi Temple and a Talisman and Ancient String. So he's setting up for a big turn right here. Oh, he found a World Breaker off the top. We don't know if he has one, but
And
if he doesn't, yeah. Kozilek's return, okay.
Yeah, Eric could cast a turn 3 World Breaker. I think he has Eye of Ugin in his hand, so that's pretty impressive. Turn 3 World Breaker is pretty gross. But Kozilek's return also looking very good here.
And Ben drew a big game hunter, but currently as things are going, Eric is off to a fantastic start. And Ben still doesn't have that much to do.
No.
Viscera Seer gets in for 1.
Yeah, Ben knows the Kozilek's turn's coming. He had certainly no incentive to cast Big Game Hunter. He could have set up a Chord for 2, but the problem is it's not like you can float Chord mana with Viscera Seer. You have to cast the Chord in response to Kozilek's return, and there's nothing Ben could get that would be productive to get here.
Looks like Eric also has a Reality Smasher in his hand, so grab the Burn Willows here. I think he's just going to pass back to Ben.
Yeah, Eric is worried about Collected Company. He doesn't want a main phase Chord, but he's going to upkeep or main phase return. He's going to want to upkeep it, though.
All right, so Kozilek return on the stack. He's sacking the birds to the Viscera Seer. Another sack, another scry. He doesn't like what he finds on top.
Yeah, Ben really looking for Collected Company here.
Yeah, so he drew a forest for the turn.
Yeah,
Well,
this is
what
going
he
to
was
be
looking for.
a tough game for Ben. He's got a Big Game Hunter, which has no targets, a Court of Calling, which is not very close to doing anything. Oh, man.
Oh, here we go. Thought Not Seer. Show me what you got. All
Yeah.
lands, Big Game Hunter, and a Court of Calling.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy. Just take Big Game Hunter, play Reality Smasher, attack for 5. Ben can't even cast Court. He doesn't even have triple green. So Eric has to be pretty happy about seeing all this.
Oh, yeah. And 2 lands. Yeah, this hand's not really going anywhere. So Eric, thinking about how he wants to craft the rest of this game.
It looks like multiple Reality Smashers in hand. I mean, this is the kind of game that it's going to be very difficult to imagine Eric losing. He has to worry a little bit about maybe Ben assembling the combo. Like if you take Big Game
Like out
Hunter,
of nowhere, that sort of thing.
Yeah, if you take Big Game Hunter and Ben draws like a Malira, that doesn't even get there because there's a Reality Smasher coming at you right now.
So Big Game Hunter was the card picked by Eric, and Reality Smasher comes in, hits for 5. Ben plays an Overgrown Tomb and passes back to Eric. It looks like this game is out of reach. Eric takes the match 2-1 against Ben Friedman, and moves on to 12-1.
Yeah, so both players actually now 12-1, as Ben was undefeated, the last undefeated, I believe, and paired down.
Yeah, looks like we got some bonus magic for y'all. We have Adam Yurchick versus Kyle Peters, some turbo magic. Let's see, Flooded Strand for Adam. Oh, did Kyle chose not to play anything? Is he playing Dredge?
Let's take a look at his deck list.
Yep.
No, Kyle's playing Elves, and it looks like he mulliganed to 4.
Oh, no. Oh, okay, that explains the no land.
All right, well, this is going to be a turbo match then. And he mulliganed to 4 and just passed on turn 1.
Yeah, untapped Cavern of Souls. Here comes the Mimic. Pass back to Kyle. Did you find a land? No land. That's game. Indeed, that was turbo match.
Well, it lived up to its name. That was, in fact, not false advertising.
All right, so the players are going to go to the sideboard.
And looks like game 2 here. Adam Yurchick playing blue-white. Eldrazi.
Yeah, and Kyle's playing Elves.
Kyle opting to play a land on turn 1 this game, which is, I think, a much
A
stronger
much better play than no land.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. A 4-card hand with all 1-drops is not unreasonable.
Yeah, Eldrazi Temple for Adam. Let's see what Kyle can do this turn. Doesn't look like he has more lands.
Yeah.
Elves for a Nettle Drone.
And it's
Nettle Sentinel, sorry.
And it's true of Elves as it is of any other deck. If you play Horizon Canopy turn 1, you probably don't have any other green sources. So Kyle might be treating us to the most turbo match we'll see this entire weekend. And that's not even counting the fact that it's a little sped up.
So Dismember's going to take care of that Mystic. All right, Eldrazi Displacer for Adam. Pass back to Kyle. He finds a Horizon Canopy off the top.
That is painful. He's going to tap Horizon Canopy to cast Dismember at some point this game, and that is at max pain.
Another Displacer, an attack for... Yeah, so Displacer attacks another Displacer. All right, taking so much damage here. Dismember take care of one of the Displacers.
That's like the old, sack a fetch land for an untapped shock land to cast Thought's plan.
Cavernous Souls for Kyle. Attack for 2 with Nettle Sentinel. All right, Elvish Archdruid untaps that Sentinel.
Kyle's taking 3, 7, 8,
Oh, Path
9,
to
10,
Exile.
11, 12. So I think Kyle's at 8 right now. But he's going to get some slightly less painful lands now.
Yeah, drawing the land there from that path is pretty good. But obviously Elvish Archdruid, such an important part of what he's trying to do, and not having it there is pretty rough.
Uh-oh.
Untapped land, yes.
I
Reality Smasher crunches in. Actually, he smashes in.
I think if Kyle might be obliged to block here. And if so, he has to block the Displacer.
He's certainly considering it.
Yeah, I think Kyle might be at 9 actually. I'm trying to add up what happened in this game, but
Yeah.
Either way, he's chumping here, and he's got a Lennar Waste. If he does have a Collected Company, so it's possible Company can bail him out, but it's highly unlikely.
Looks like he's gonna go for it. Here we go. Collected Company. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's game.
Right, turbo match
That was-
indeed.
Yeah, that was Turbo Magic indeed. And that is the last round that we have here in round 13 at GP Detroit. That'll wrap it up for us. Gabby Sparks and Luis Scott Vargas in the booth.
Start on your road to the Pro Tour by playing in a preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. With more than 2,000 locations running events around the world, you're sure to find one near you. Visit magic.wizards.com/pptq for schedules and information.
We appreciate you spending your weekend here with us.